When Harry finally got out of pokey again, his mum would only let him sleep in the garage. She called him a devil boy, and she wouldn't believe him that he didn't know that the perfume was urine and vinegar. Mum allowed him into the house once a day, briefly, to use the toilet, shave, bathe, and pick up some food to be eaten in the garage. She followed him around the house continually while he was on the premises to make sure he didn't steal anything. Not that he ever had, but his mum assumed that he must be up to no good. She repeatedly said to him that he should read his Bible and listen to what God has to say. And the noise of the traffic was unbearable. He couldn't concentrate on reading the Bible with all the street sounds. The garage fronted onto the street, and there was a lot of traffic all the time. Harry turned up his stereo and blasted out Black Sabbath and Sex Pistols and Nirvana, but every time there was a break, the traffic noise intruded. So he decided to do something about it. "You don't think of a Morphy Richards hairdryer as a dangerous weapon," said a spokesman for the Ilkeston police, "but the way Harry Johnson used it, it could have caused serious injury." 21-year-old Johnson, unemployed, had earlier received his 6th official warning for impersonating a traffic policeman. He was angry with motorists driving at 80 past his house, the spokesman explained. So he started dressing up in a dark suit and peaked cap, and stood on the pavement with his mum's hairdryer, pointing it at approaching cars. Drivers naturally thought it was a radar gun and slammed on their brakes. We had skid marks 100 yards long up the road. Speaking outside his house, Johnson condemned police conduct. "If a man isn't free to use his own domestic appliances in the open air, then I call it fascism. Anyway, I'm doing their job for them. They ought to pay me, including time and a half for weekends." So, Harry got a job as a traffic cop. His mum and John were not impressed, so Harry thought hard about his act. The best bit had been the lunging at dogs, especially the way the dogs reacted to him. The dogs liked him, and he liked the dogs. So he decided to go doggy and learn from them. So he went and found a pack of wild feral dogs, and spent many a happy afternoon romping and playing with them, and learning their language. And he got good at it. His mum and John were a bit bothered, as he kept barking and growling in the middle of conversations, and started acting more and more like the dogs, even down to eating his dinner out of a bowl, and being aggressive if anyone tried to talk to him while he was eating. He practised hard and got good, and then he entered the competition. Although the standard of performance among all 35 contestants was unusually high, Harry Johnson is the unanimous choice of the judges, said an official as he announced the winner of the Nakhon Ratchasima Canine Copycat Contest, held in northern Thailand, to publicise an anti-rabies campaign. His ability to mimic man's best friend in all his moods was quite astonishing. The judges were particularly impressed by his displays of belligerence and amorousness, and his barking at strangers, and playing dead were highly recommended. But it is for his howling at the moon and his highly original rubbing against a leg and urinating on a lamppost that he will be best remembered. Harry was very happy. He had won. He was the best. He went very doggy for a while, and scared the hell out of everyone with all sorts of strange dog antics. He worked on his act, and it mutated and developed. He did it on the street. He went into shops and acted doggy. When he was at parties, he would suddenly start going doggy and raping women's legs. Oh dear, oh dear. There wasn't another dog show for a while, so he entered the next best thing, the local pub competition. "I'm a student, so every bit helps," said Harry Johnson, when questioned by reporters about his recent success. Yes, it was worth the pain. "I thought my act was pretty unbeatable. I won the money, and that's what I was aiming for." Days earlier, Johnson had scooped 1,000 New Zealand dollars in Trader Mackenzie's Tavern's controversial promotion, How Far Will You Go? But at a price. "I knew when I entered that I'd have to do something special to win. I saw an earlier contestant pierce his penis foreskin with a safety pin, and I thought I could do better than that. So, when it was my turn, I stapled my scrotum and foreskin to a white pine crucifix with an industrial stapler, then poured cigarette lighter fluid over it and set it alight. The act nearly turned to disaster when I started my African dancing, which caused the flames to burn my penis. The fire extinguisher I'd brought with me refused to work, but luckily a guy threw his beer all over me, and that put out fire. They declared me the winner, and I went straight down to the Students' Medical Centre to get my burns treated. Everything's fine now, the dressings come off next week, and I can pay some bills and buy some clothes. Later, Johnson's mother spoke of her feelings. Some people are calling him sick, but I'm just glad he won. I would have hated for him to go through all that and not achieve the object of it all. But he still hasn't got a girlfriend, and that does worry me.